Okay, let's get started. Good evening, everybody. My name is David Fortino. I'll be the host slash moderator of tonight's Zoom. So, for the folks that are new, my past history is in continuity within the public sector, and recently transitioned to the private sector to lead a crisis management program. And I really wanted to bring a group together to kind of have a collaboration, share best practices, and not be such a formal session as a typical webinar, but more just an interactive sessions where we feel comfortable having a dialogue about specific topics. And in the past, I talked about the difference between public and private. I've talked about a variety of different topics, but this month I really want to talk about how FEMA has changed their continuity program. So I am extremely privileged to have Denise from FEMA headquarters on tonight's Zoom. Denise, please introduce yourself.
As soon as I figured out how to unmute myself, I think I nailed it. So hi, everyone. My name is Denise Chrosniak. I actually work at FEMA headquarters in DC. I work for the National Continuity Training Branch. My job is, and I always get this wrong because it's such a long title, the National Continuity Training Branch Program Manager. So my job is to make sure training is still continuing on, that we're giving you the best materials and the best instructors we can give you. We're also in the midst of a rewrite, which we're going to talk about this evening, and how that's going on. And my background, just for your awareness, I was active duty Air Force for 13 years. I was a nuclear missile operator. And so I got involved in continuity then. I started doing some operations center things, and I really enjoyed continuity, but nuclear continuity is a totally different world. I've also done some time doing training at the Defense Intelligence Agency, as well as doing training for a small computer company before I got into FEMA. I started working there a little over 2 years ago. And this has been from day one when I set my foot in the door, the task that was handed to me, which was to rework our training program. And what it had boiled down to is we had too many courses that were repetitive, and too many courses that could be handled by our staff. So we really needed to kind of start fresh. And so that's what a lot of what we've been working on has been. And then I've known David since I started. He actually was part of one of my working groups, and wonderful man. So when he asked me to do this, I jumped at the chance because I'm all about getting you the right information and letting you know exactly where we stand with everything.
No, thank you, Denise, and I feel the same way about you. Denise and I were just saying before we started the Zoom. I remember my last meeting with Denise. She brought 24 Dunkin' Donuts munchkins into the meeting, and it was in a secure meeting space, so we weren't allowed to have cell phones. So I knew as soon as I saw those munchkins that I love Denise, and I said I hope she's in all my meetings. So great seeing you again. So Denise, you were in former Air Force, got into FEMA, and right into the continuity branch, right? So what did it look like when you first got in? And I guess, did you suggest a change, or did the leadership before you came in suggest that we want you to revamp the continuity program?
Yeah, let me give you a bit of the background on that. So when I joined FEMA and the continuity branch, I actually started in plans and policy. However, my personal background is in education. I have my master's degree in education, and I am currently on year four. I think I'm on year 3 of earning my doctorate in instructional design and technology. So personally, I've always been involved in education. When they saw that as my resume, when I came in the door, leadership there immediately yanked me and said, while your seat will be in plans and policy, your actual job is going to be in training. And what they wanted was somebody to go through the litany of training materials they have and go through all of the courses and watch people teach these classes and find out where we had gaps, because we knew that there were issues. We had seen surveys come back that had issues. There had been an audit that came back, and it showed that out of, I believe, the 15 courses that we owned at the time, 14 of them were out of date, or showing out of date material. And it was just too heavy of a load for the training staff that existed already, as well as the training staff that was currently in place didn't have a very strong training background, didn't have a real strong instructional design and training building background. So my first year at FEMA, I spent doing audience analysis, doing task analysis and skills analysis, and literally traveling around the country, watching instructors train and teaching myself, or, actually going out and teaching materials myself so I can see where our gaps were. And what we realized is that our training as we had it built was very much really a regurgitation of the federal regulations. And when you're doing proper training, you should be taking the regulations or guidance it's built from and modifying it to a language or to a level that the audience needs to understand. And we just hadn't done that. And so what was happening is we had substandard material. Classes were repeating over top of themselves. And then we had instructors who weren't trained properly on how to teach the material, then going out and giving substandard training, or they were modifying it and they were either not showing parts of the training or adding things to the training that weren't part of the initial build, to make up for that substandard training we were providing. And so what we ended up doing is going through, and we kind of did a clean rewrite. And so we went through and we said, sat down with all the regional continuity managers, speaking for the 10 regions in the states, as well as our territorials and everybody, right, that the U.S. trains. And we said, explain to us what you want. So if I were to teach continuity to a beginner's class, and I really kind of barreled it down to what you would see normally in a college education, right? If you had a psychology and it's a fundamentals of psychology course, it would be a 101 course, right? And then the second level would be a 201 and a 301. So we started with a basic, an intermediate, and advanced courses. And said, if I were to teach continuity, what are the topics you want in here? And honestly, I had been at FEMA maybe 2 weeks, and then I was at this conference forcing all the regional continuity managers to do homework in this conference and making them look at each other and do this group project of coming up with these objectives. And what I found out is that almost everyone agreed immediately on what objectives need to be in the courses. It was just they'd never sat down in that format and built them that way. So that's what we started with. That has led to our current training rewrite. Now, the new courses are going to be a 1300 series. So one of them already exists, the IS 1300. You can take that course anytime. That course replaced the IS 546 and 547. Now, IS 1300 is a fundamentals course. It is meant that anyone can take this course. It is not a federal specific audience. It is not a non-federal specific audience. And that is something we're trying to fix with our messaging with the new material, because I take great offense to the fact that we always break it down feds and non-feds, and we've done it for years. And I hate to tell you that I'm a federal employee, but I'm also part of a community. Right? Like I have neighbors that the other day my snow shovel broke and they let me borrow their snow shovel. I've got neighbors that I'll bring over cookies or whatever, and I'll go bring them brownies. And so I have neighbors. I'm part of a community as well. I'm not just a fed. So we're really trying to bring in that whole community approach. So that's kind of where the background of this all started. So when we built this, the original intent was to get IS 1300 out by 2018, which we were successful in. 2019. By 2019, we gave ourselves a year to get IS 1300, which again is fundamentals of continuity. You can go online and take that now. We are in the final stages right now of the replacement courses for 548 and 550, which will be IS 1301 and 1302. And those courses should be coming out hopefully within the next 30 days.
So Denise, for the folks that aren't familiar with these numbers.
Oh yeah.
No, it's okay. It's for the folks that aren't familiar with these numbers. So the IS 1300 course is, would you say, an awareness course? So maybe I'm someone new to learning about continuity. Yes,
it is a course that is less than an hour long to take. It does not require an instructor. You can take it on your own. It is free. It's held at the Emergency Management Institute website. So they host the course for us. And the course basically is going to teach what is continuity, how can it benefit you and your community, It does show some real world examples, as well as it starts talking about what we consider the 4 phases of continuity. That is the course that I recommend that everyone who is new to continuity take, or if you're having a leadership concern where maybe leadership doesn't fully grasp what we're talking about in continuity. That is always the course that I would recommend them go kind of at their own speed, go through and review.
And if I remember correctly, the 546 course was program manager, and the 550 was the planners course.
Correct. So the 550 was the continuity planners course. And so let me start this way. So FEMA has a litany of free courses that we provide. Some of them are autonomous learning, like the IS 1300, where you can go on and take it at your speed, yourself, at any given time. All of our courses are hosted by the Emergency Management Institute, so that you get accreditation for them. The 550 and 548, which you've heard me say before, are 2 courses that are traditionally in-class courses. They were 2 days in-class courses. Now, the 548 was a continuity program manager's course, and the 550 is the continuity planner's course. What we have found during this, refresh is that the courses not only had significant overlap, but there was also a lot of information missing that needed to be present for the 548 course. And we needed to really go more in depth in the 550 in the planners course. And just in its example, for those of you who have been working in continuity for a significant amount of time, we talk about a business process analysis, which is a way to find out how you do each one of your essential functions. What are all the requirements for them? And when we're talking about that, in our previous 550 course, we don't ever show you an example of it. We talk about it, but we never show. And that is a very complex document. That can take a very long time, but it's extremely important if you can have a good business process analysis for a continuity plan. So in the new courses, when we went through and rebuilt them, we started from scratch. We started with, what do the regulations say? What does the audience say? We went out and looked at, different workshops and what do the people want to have in these courses? And we built all of it in that way. So what we ended up having to do is build in an example. So you'll see if and when you take the online 1300 course, we actually start with a town. We actually created a fake town, a fake city, and which is a lot harder than you would think, because I have to find a name that doesn't exist. Otherwise, we could be in trouble. So we had to make up a name, which we did. We created the fake city of Gashank. And it's just for your awareness, it's a combination of my old roommate's cat and my dog, Hank, and their 2 names together. That's how we came up with the name, right?
Love the creativity of that.
That every instructional designer puts something of themselves in every training they build. I promise you, there's always these little Easter eggs that we do just for ourselves. And so that's how we did that. We built this town. And what we do now in the new course materials is we show you examples from this town. We walk you through the town having a flooding event. And if the town had a flooding event, what were they doing? What did they learn from it? So now in the replacement course for 550, which will be 1301, we actually have a business process analysis that we've written out for you that is from the town of Gashank and their Office of Public Safety, specifically their 911 dispatch center. And so we'll show you what their essential functions are and how they built out their business process analysis. And then we have the audience start working on theirs. So as the students see that, then they have something to at least start with as we walk through it, and they can start working on theirs. Now, one of the things we do stress very heavily is that training is a simulated environment, and that when you're doing this in real life, you never want to be doing this in a vacuum. So we know that you're not going to walk out of the courses with a completely built continuity plan, but you'll know where to start, and you'll have that muscle memory. You'll have at least worked with each of the items before, and you'll know where to find that information. So these are some of the significant changes we are working on.
So you brought up, sorry. No, you and I were hitting the same point. I was just going to ask you 1301, 1302. What do they look like? What's the title of them? Are they in person? Are they online?
Yep. So they're built to be in person, but I caveat that with we are going to be providing them virtually, as we are currently still doing that with the 548 and 550. So right now, to provide a course virtually through EMI, we actually will teach for 4 days, and it's 4 hours each day. So tomorrow, I actually am teaching a 550 class. And so it'll start tomorrow. It'll be at 10 a.m. Eastern to 2 p.m. Eastern for the next 4 days of my life that I'll be teaching that course. And that'll give them the credit. It's a K level course as opposed to an E, which means it's at EMI, and L, which means it's local. So it's a K level course, which means it's virtual. So our intent is that they will eventually become 2-day in-person courses once the pandemic has receded. But until that point in time, we are not going to hold off. We are going to provide them virtually.
So Denise, let me ask you, so let's just say I took the IS 1300 course online. I hear that you might be making these changes to 1301, 1302. I see a 550 course online, but should I just wait and take this 1301 or 1302 course in, say, late 2021, 2022? Or should I go ahead and take the 550 course anyway?
So I'm going to tell you that the 550 course and the 548 do still have good information in them. Once we officially implement 1301, 1302, there will be no more 548 or 550. They are going to be retired, and we will be updating the program brochure to say 548, 550, or 1301 and 1302 for those of you who are earning those certificate levels. I will never tell anyone to wait. You know, the training is still important. If you can get into a 548 or 550 class, please do so. We are still bringing that information into these classes as much as we can. Case in point, tomorrow I start teaching the 550 course. I already have planned where I'm going to go rogue from the material and show the example that's going to be out of the 1301 course. Because again, the point is for these students to get the best material. So while the new stuff is not official yet, we use that as just an example.
And I'm sure you get asked this question a lot. A lot of people are really interested in FEMA's certification program in continuity and the different levels. If you go ahead and you take that 550 course, are you quote unquote grandfathered in to the 1301, 1302 course, or would you have to take those courses in addition in order to get that certification?
So for the current certification, you would be grandfathered in. We are looking currently at new certification levels, but that has not been solidified yet. And here's part of the reason why. If you've been working on your current level 1 or level 2 certification, first off, we want you to have time to finish it. So even when we create the new practitioner levels, there will be a time period of transition where both will be active. If that makes sense. So people can finish out the old one and they can still start the new one. Some of the changes we are making to the practitioner levels make it so that it will not be I have my level 1, so I'm automatically grandfathered into this new level. So once the new practitioner levels come out, those will be a whole new thing. Now, that being said, some of the courses are still the same. You'll see that, you know, we left the 700, 800 series for ICS is still in there for planners, but we've added some very specific courses for planning personnel. And we've taken away some of the extraneous courses where it's like, choose this one or choose this one, choose this adventure, choose that adventure. We've gotten rid of some of that. And we've ended up going ahead and getting rid of some of the requirements that aren't necessary. Specifically, I'm talking about the 141 requirement. So there is a requirement right now, if you wanted to earn your continuity master practitioner level 2, that you would actually have to teach a class, that you have to teach. And we are doing that in this virtual environment. We are allowing people to help teach during the virtual environment to get their level 2. But that you have to attend a training course on how to train, and then you have to teach. And what we've found is that honestly, not everybody wants to teach. Like that's a very specific subset of individuals. Some people have no desire to be in front of a classroom. Some people have no desire to teach. And honestly, some people just shouldn't be. And it's a relic of a previous era where they did not have enough instructors to teach the amount of courses that they needed. So as part of this, we are fixing our instructor qualifications. So with the new practitioner levels, when they come out, and they won't come out until we start going back to in-classroom, because some of the courses we have in there are in-classroom courses run by EMI. So it won't come out till we have in-classroom. And what'll happen is that you'll see that if you want to teach, that you'll be allowed to, you can still take that as electives, but it won't be a requirement. So
And I think that's a great point, and I think that's a great change. I think there's a lot of individuals who are hired to either be a planner for continuity or run a continuity program within their organization.
Right.
But that's what the job is. The job doesn't require them to teach, right? It's to implement and execute my continuity program, not to teach a course in continuity. Very different. So I think that was a good choice by FEMA to kind of remove that, but keep it as an elective. So let's walk me through the process a little bit more.
Yes,
Okay, so I take the 550, I've taken the 548, I've taken this online course. Now what?
For what specifically? For the level?
Right. So this 1301, 1302 is just replacing 548, 550, same titles, correct?
Yes. 1301 will replace 550. 1302 will replace 548. And part of that is because of one of the shifts, paradigm shifts that we have, which is honestly, every program manager needs to know what their planners are going through. So you'll see that even with the new practitioner levels that we are still working on, that we're looking at program manager and planner, that it's no longer master and practitioner. It's if you're a program manager, you would take these courses. If you're a planner, you would take these courses. Those people who are both, obviously, they'll take a couple extra courses. But one of the key things is even with a program manager, they have to take the planner's course. We want you to understand what your planners are going through, as the continuity plan tends to be the crux of most continuity programs, right? So we want you to have that training. Whereas a continuity planner doesn't need a continuity program manager's course. They may not. We want to make sure we're getting the right people in the right classes. And that's something else we were lacking with our previous setup, is that we're not getting the people where they need to be.
So the 1301, 1302, are there any other new courses beyond the 1302?
Yes. So we've got some new courses we are still working on. So they are in draft format. And by draft, I mean like even objectives draft format. We are looking at the next two courses to tackle are going to be devolution and reconstitution. Excuse me. And those are, we anticipate those being 1-day courses. The theory being that once we are back in person, you could teach those courses as an add-on after running one of the 2-day courses, right? Then you'd have, 3 days total of training. And the reason we're doing that is basically because of the outcry that we've gotten through surveys, through feedback forms, through visits, that really devolution is a woefully misunderstood concept, that we really need to work on that. And reconstitution is something that every organization is going to have to do in some shape or form after a continuity event. And we've learned a lot even during this pandemic. One of the first things we did once the pandemic kicked off is we ended up having to, in the June, July timeframe, give these reconstitution webinars to explain ways to look at if you have to go back to your office, what are some things you should look at, when should you be going back, how are personnel responding, things like that. And because of that, that's, we had already had reconstitution on the books, and this pandemic really did stress that, organizations are going to reconstitute differently. We don't even know how we're going to reconstitute. Am I going to telework the rest of my days and then I will travel when I need to travel? Because that has my vote. But we don't know yet. So that's something that we talk about reconstitution. Everyone should be involved in, and devolution is just woefully misunderstood. So those are our next two. And then we're also looking at senior leadership level continuity training. So right now I would recommend, of course, having senior leadership look at the IS 1300 in their spare time. But we're also looking at is there a place or a way to make a senior leadership level continuity training?
Okay, interesting. Now, all these courses are free, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We do not charge for courses. And I know that there are some people out there charging for our courses. If someone is trying to take your money for these courses, please let me know, because they're not supposed to. Um, the only thing that would be charged would be if you had to go to EMI. And even then, I think we foot that bill. So you shouldn't be charged anything to take any of our courses. They are all free. We've actually had a recent run in with a couple of locations letting us know that someone's trying to charge for FEMA courses. So
Good to know. So Denise, what's your fee? I mean, you obviously work for the federal government. I'm assuming the most of your audience and participation are from government agencies, whether that's state, local, or fed. What's your feeling on having the private sector attend a continuity course at FEMA? Do you welcome them? Do you feel like the curriculum is really not for the private sector, or do you want even more private sector to attend? Do you wish there was more collaboration? What's your feeling about that?
I want more of everybody. I want more of everybody. So we have made it very it has been a point of interest for us as we've gone through these courses to ensure that even when we're doing the pilots of these courses and testing them, that we incorporate everyone, every federal, non-federal, local, state, private sector, contractor. We've got representation from every walk of life that I can find. And part of that is just based on the fact that when I've taught everybody. I went up to Boston and I got to teach somebody from State Street Bank. I don't I don't have any money in State Street Bank, but I know they're planning for continuity. And part of that is the um re-messaging that FEMA continuity is doing. And to put it bluntly, continuity has messaged themselves poorly for many, many years. Continuity was always that super secret squirrel thing that only the federal government ever spoke about and no one else was going to talk about. When in reality, continuity is something everybody should be involved with. Every organization, every individual, every family, however your family looks. You know what I mean? I have two tiny dogs here, and that's all that's in the house with me. And I promise you, if we have to evacuate, I've got two tiny backpacks I'm putting said tiny dogs in that have little leg holes in them, and they're going to go with me. I have something even that small. That's part of that preparedness level, is part of continuity. And so we've really been working on rebranding ourselves ever since the continuity guidance circular came out in 2018. We've really been trying to get that message out to everybody. This is for everybody. I will teach anybody. I put them in a classroom. I'm in. Let's do it. It's free training. Sign up. Let's go teach everybody. Because to me, the more people understand this, the better resilience that we have across the country. You know what I mean? One of the things I joked about the other day with a friend of mine is that I got a phone call from somebody from the Delaware State continuity section. And they were like, hey, I need to get into one of the classes. And I was like, well, here's how you do it. And I'm more than happy to help everyone, but Delaware is near and dear to my heart. That's where my dad lives. So I'd really like to make sure that Delaware stays, up and running as well. But it's things like that it's everybody. There's one of the examples that we talk about was after Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, who were the first people to start feeding everybody? And the answer is not the Red Cross. The answer is not the federal government. It's not even the state and local government. Literally Burger King. So everybody is part of continuity. So we really want to make sure that we are getting that information to everybody. And I'm all in having everyone teach, or not teach, but have everyone take the training.
You the great segue to my next question, Denise. So, you're developing the curriculum. There's some great changes being had. You talked a little bit about instructors in the past kind of either cutting the courses or editing the courses a little bit to what they feel it should be. What do the instructors look like today, and what will they look like? Could someone from the private sector who's been in continuity 25 years say, hey, I would help teach a continuity course? Am I eligible, or what's that eligibility look like? Go ahead.
So the eligibility to teach is just that you are in continuity as a day-to-day job, and that you want to teach. And so there's certain factors we're going to ask for with the new instructor cadre. Part of it is that we want to make sure that people that are teaching continuity are actively dealing in continuity day to day, because some of the best lessons that you're going to get are the examples from somebody working with this, not just somebody trying to pad a resume, right? So we want to make sure that people have been in continuity. So we ask for a resume that shows what you're doing in continuity. Let us know how things are going. You have to take a train the trainer course for each one of the classes, the 1301, 1302, which is where myself and the other lady who helped build it, Christine Gregoric, actually teach you the purpose of each unit, teach you how to teach each unit, and then walk you through the different activities. And as opposed to previous FEMA train the trainers, where you would sit through the course, and then at the last day, you'd have like an hour block on how you should have taught it. We actually are going to do that throughout the entire course. So we give you the background of it. We give you, we're the two that made it. We're the two that built the material. So that is, you get sit there with an instructor manual. You get to write down examples from other people if the ones we provide you aren't good enough. All of that. These are the things that so you have to have the trainers, and then you still have to do a demo. And so the demo could be one of two ways. You can record yourself teaching our slide deck. We're going to provide you a slide deck that has a combination of slides from each one of the 3 core classes. Or you can do a live demo via Adobe Connect or Zoom, and we would actually then, watch you teach then. And the reason we want people to do the demo is, not everyone who has been teaching honestly should have been teaching. There are some people who really like to teach, but they're not good at it. And I hate to say that, but it's a fact. And we have to make sure that when we're providing this training, we're getting people that have the experience and continuity, that want to teach this material, and that are capable of teaching this material. So we are adding that as well. So we've had a couple already. We've already had a couple, see, I can think the most recent one, we had a private sector, we had an airport, and we had judicial, the courts, all had somebody come to try to teach. And so, and what that does is that'll put you in our database. And so then what may happen is when we start thinking about teaching in person, if we have to help a class or we have to help a region teach in person, instead of sending Denise from DC all the way over to like Arizona, we might be able to find somebody who's closer to Arizona who might be able to teach, that's certified to teach the courses, trying to spend the taxpayer dollars wisely. So that is another.
I think it also diversifies your delivery a little bit, right? So, if I'm taking a course and I have a federal employee, I have, a potential local estate employee teaching, and then I have a private sector employee, I'm really getting to hear how continuity differs amongst the different sectors. You know what I mean? So I think that's really valuable.
Yes, and we can't speak enough to having that diversity, in that training environment, because you're going to get so many different examples. So the new instructor guides we created for these new courses are significantly better than what previously existed. If you've had to teach one of our courses in the past, you know that our previous instructor guides were literally just the slide in the bottom part of the instructor guide. It was not a very helpful instructor guide. We've written in examples, we've built in things, we've written in stories, we've given you links to things that you can look at in advance to help instructors really get to that second level, that third level of information. But the more you see other people teach, the more you pick up the good from their teaching, and then you may even see something like, oh, I do that, I need to stop doing that. Maybe I need to, you can pick up things that you're doing. So having that diversity of examples and diversity of stories and diversity of training is huge. It's wonderful. And that's really our intent, is to have where the regions basically have their own teaching staff within that region. That are a significant, diverse, but still relevant to that region. Because that's something else we don't want to get too crazy about. I live in Maryland. So hurricanes can be something that I think about, but not really. But if I were to teach in Florida, that's a different story. But if I go teach in Arizona, they don't care. Right? It's like, We don't care about these things, Denise. So we've really tried to get rid of specific location. We've gotten rid of the let's just talk only about hurricanes concept in our training. And we're really trying to make sure that we are allowing for that diversity and then still that local relevance.
Right. So Denise, I have a ton more questions, but I want to pause and allow people on the Zoom to ask any questions that they may have. And if no one has any questions, I'll keep going. Don't get me wrong. But let me pause.
I see one in the chat
Okay,
that I can answer right now. The question is there a time frame in which the courses must be completed to qualify for certification levels, such as within the last 5 years, complete the following? Right now, there is not. There is no specific time frame. And since we have not produced the new levels that we are working on, I do not believe we have a time frame on there either. We may, because we have to go back and look at the courses to see how much they've changed. And I believe it's going to be within the past 2 years, if I had to guess. But that is just something that we are still working on. There is no need for recertification with our current level 1, level 2 that we have right now. And if you do not wish to take the new practitioner levels that we come up with, you don't have to. But understand that your current level 1, level 2 practitioner levels will not swap over easily. It's not a grandfathered in with the new levels. The new levels are going to be a whole new ballgame, because we really try to put in there things that are important to continuity planners and continuity program managers. One of the things we talked about when building these is that we've always treated the planner as less than. That it's always been you're a planner, but then you're a continuity program manager, right? But in reality, both are extraordinarily important for good continuity programs. So we're treating them as equal in the new system that we're trying to create, which again, I don't have a timeline for when that's going to come out, because that's going to have to wait till we can go back to in-person courses. But when that does come out, we're treating them as equal. So you won't need to get both. If you're going to be a planner, we've got courses in there specific for planning to include things like how does the private sector industry work with, power lines and waterways? There's actually a course out there that already exists. So that's one of our courses that we have in there that you would have to take to get the planner certification. Whereas the the continuity program manager certification, there's courses out there that talk about how to lead volunteers. That would be something that's good for continuity program manager to know, as opposed to maybe the planner. So the courses are very specific. So there's no one-for-one swap with what we have now to what we're going to, but we're also not currently requiring that if you have your level 1, you have to go do this. We hope that you do, because the training is going to be relevant. It's not going to be choose your own adventure. It's going to be very specific for what you're supposed to be doing. So hopefully you do. And I hope I answered the questions that I see.
Yeah.
Now I'll shut up and answer any that are asked.
No, that's good. It's sometimes it's hard for me to see the screen and read the chat box at the same time. So I appreciate that. Folks, you do have the ability to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question. So please, if you have a question, I'm going to take a pause and unmute yourself and feel free to ask the question.
Hey, David. Hey, Denise. It's Bonnie Canal here. David was he's in my class actually today. Denise, I teach, I'm the one that's been ragging on him about teaching the class. I teach business continuity, certified business continuity professional for DRI. I'm also a certified FEMA instructor for NDPTC. So I teach a lot of awareness classes, tornadoes, floods, really fun stuff like that. So I am interested in what you're talking about, and I will actually pay attention. I'm familiar with EMI, and I do take a lot of your classes online, not particularly your classes, but FEMA's classes online. So I didn't know about them. So if I don't know, I can't take them, but I will research this. But I do want to tell you how much I do appreciate the work that y'all do. I know, as both an instructor and someone who is I helped develop our debris management class, which is, again, really fun. you want to take a fun class, learn about debris management. But I want to thank you for the work that you do. I know it's hard work, and you're absolutely right. The need for planning, the need to understanding, to engage a whole community, of course, which is FEMA's big stuff, is absolutely imperative. So again, thank you. I no question, just wanted to do a shout out, David, and just to let you know that I am here. And sorry, I was banging. I'm tired. I've been teaching all day, so I've had enough, but I did want to come listen. So thank you guys both.
Thank you, Bam. I get it. It's exhausting.
Yeah, if I had it, yeah, I got another day tomorrow, so I get it.
Right.
So, but we'll be. I did say to David that I do want to speak with you offline, so I definitely want to do.
Oh, sure. Sure. And actually, let me do a couple of things here in the chat box. I'm going to give all of you my email address.
Perfect.
So you can actually contact me as you wish.
Perfect.
Assuming I spelled my name right, I did. I did that one time teaching a class. I misspelled my own name. I felt really bad about it because it's the dumbest thing. Continue. And then we also have a continuity practitioner mailbox. So if you ever have just a random continuity training question, or you would like to be an instructor in the continuity realm, this is the mailbox you will email, and I will put that in here as well.
And I will say to Bonnie and Denise, being on both sides, right? So like DRI has their terminology and their steps in continuity. FEMA has their terminology and their steps in continuity, right? So you might hear business process analysis in one,
right,
and you might hear business impact analysis in another. And just learning the different terminology for anybody in a continuity professional is interesting and good to hear. I think on both, to hear how it's a little different, but then kind of the same at the same time.
Yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah, and to that point is to have to come to some agreement on terminology, because Denise, as you know, FEMA's always talked about COOP plans, right?
Yeah.
So we're forever having conversations about COOP plans, and so when I do a lot of work in the public-private sector, but having these COOP plan conversations, people are like, well, I said, well, I do business continuity. Well, what is that? Well, that's COOP plans in the private sector. Oh, okay.
Right.
And or then you're talking to the public sector, to the private sector side, and you're saying, well, FEMA's, you're going to hear a lot about COOP plans, and I'm like, I don't even know what the heck that is. So again, there is this high need to have this common terminology come together so that we can agree, because again, the more that we can agree on the terms and the processes, the stronger all communities become.
Well, and I remember, Bonnie, being in DC and Denise sitting in the room with you, and we had a conversation about continuity of operations versus business continuity. And what's the difference? Do you change the language in the curriculum to make it kind of more inclusive? Like, what does that look like? So it's very good questions, and right, COOP came up, and business process analysis came up, and mission essential functions is much different than the way DRI teaches it. So interesting.
And in the new courses, I'll tell you that we even dropped the mission from the essential functions.
Okay.
And we just call them essential functions now because mission was too complicated. It's still in doctrine. So we have it in the instructor notes to explain it so they can understand it for those who are federal agencies and they're stuck on the MEF. But other than that, it's more of a, well, let's talk about what an actual essential function is and how do you do this?
Right. Any other questions for Denise?
Yes, sorry, this is Chris Stitt. Just real quick, why are we waiting for in-person again?
Oh, for the new practitioner levels. So the
yeah,
new
and the new courses.
No, new courses were not. New courses will be out hopefully in the next 30 days.
Awesome. Okay. So then why for the new practitioner levels?
Because not every course that we wanted to use is virtualized. And I don't own all of the courses we want to use. They're owned by different sections of different organizations. So we can't force them to virtualize their training. So
you're the government, of course you can.
What's that?
You're the government. Of course you can.
Yeah, I wish it worked like that. I cannot. Because there's some really good courses that are housed elsewhere within FEMA, and we're trying to work with them as well as EMI. But the practitioner levels, I just don't see that come out until we're back in person, unless they are able to virtualize everything. And I know EMI is trying to do what they can. So I think that's the new practitioner levels will wait, but the new courses that we control will be out within the next, hopefully 30 days. We just submitted the last of the first 3 courses. So the 1300 already exists. 1301 we submitted on Friday for final checks, and 1302 we submitted today. So.
Okay, great. Yeah. No, I've done the 1300, and I'm looking forward to a time when I can sign up then for the 1301 and 1302.
We are hoping that we'll be able to teach those in the month of March, by mid-March, early April.
Okay, outstanding. For signups for those, is it kind of the normal process that we're following now for signing up? Just kind of find out when it's going to be offered?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good questions. So that would be through EMI. Like, so, I'm asking 2 questions at the same time. I went through my LinkedIn and I saw a few people asking, hey, where are these 548, 550 classes? How do we find them, right? So where could folks find the 548, 550 now? And then kind of to Chris's point, where could you find the 1301, 1302? And how frequently are they going to be taught? So do you require, say, Region 2, you teach 2 every 3 months? Or how do you determine how many courses each region get?
So we haven't figured out the frequency of how many each region is going to teach. The only rule we have right now is, while we are virtual, I cannot have 2 locations teaching the same course, right? Because we need the virtual classroom that we've gotten approved. So if one location is teaching 550, then the other one can teach 548. That's fine. We just can't overlap. Now, to sign up for them, you would go to the NETC online admissions form. And I have to look up the link for that because I have it. Let me move that back down. That was the wrong link. Let me find this because I have it on my computer as well.
And Denise, while you're doing that, so for folks in the chat room, the FEMA-continuity-practitioner@fema.dhs.gov, that is a link that if someone wants to be an instructor on a volunteer basis for FEMA, they could submit their resume, Denise, like you recommended, and go through those steps of the evaluation process.
The resume, if they've been in any, any certificates you have for training you've already been part of. And if you want to, because you'll have to do a train the trainer as well. So you can do that and we'll set those up. Because that's the other thing is, as we're still getting the materials out there to everybody, we're also doing these train the trainers where we're teaching the instructors how to teach the materials. So it's a process we are definitely working our way through. That is the link. I just dropped it in the training or in the chat to get to the online admissions for any of the courses. So for 548, 550, and eventually the 1301, 1302. Fingers crossed in the next 30 days.
So Denise, let's what are your thoughts on, and Bonnie and I had a conversation a little bit today about this. It's okay, you could get it.
Okay. Right. My FaceTime just went off. I don't even know who called me on I didn't even know I had FaceTime on. Well,
you could show them how many friends you have.
FaceTime, but I don't have that many. That's why I couldn't figure out why it was ringing.
Denise, what's your idea or thought process on resiliency? So, you're seeing a lot in continuity, especially in the private sector, these resiliency programs that are much larger than just continuity, but might involve risk management, supply chain, et cetera. Is there any thought process on FEMA developing a broader program outside of just continuity?
I believe so. I think they haven't done any official talking about it yet, but I see the way the wind's blowing, and I think we're going to get to that point where there's going to be more than just continuity training. Because right now, all the training is still relatively stovepipe, right? For full resiliency, preparedness is part of it, and preparedness is a huge part of continuity. The real only difference between preparedness and continuity is once the event has hit. We either were or weren't prepared. but continuity is still going. So there is definitely a lot of room to grow. And I think we're getting to that point, but they have not done it yet. But I think it's extraordinary. The Chihuahuas decided to dig. It is extraordinarily important that we look at how we all connect and the overall resiliency of everything, because you can't really, if you're not looking at the individual level on up, you can't ask for resilience or continuity. You just can't do it. It's not a thing that's feasible.
Right.
I'm going to interrupt on this one. Again, hi, this is Bonnie. But several years ago, under Craig Fugate, there was a program called Project Impact. And Project Impact, in fact, George Haddow, who is one of the, who was the person who actually implemented Project Impact, he's a very dear friend of mine and done a lot of work on revamping what we call Project Impact 2. And basically that was one of the most successful programs that FEMA actually did, boots on the ground, where it gave money to communities to create what we call, resilience hubs or places within communities that could really drive resilience home. And that's something that, again, besides the training and implementation, obviously you need to have people on the same page talking, or at least trained up, right? We can talk about it at the same, again, agreement of facts, agreement of dialogue, but really, as Denise, to your point, resilience starts with the person. And again, each community needs to drive their own. So I would be very fascinated to hear where our current FEMA administrator, where they're going to pick up and go to drive this resilience capacity for the United States.
Yeah, and I don't know if that discussion level has happened. That is way above my pay grade.
Right, of course.
But is definitely interesting. I made a note for myself, so I was just doing to talk about that when I get back to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I was just curious because you're seeing the language and programs adjust to be much broader than continuity, at least in the private sector. So I know DRI has, it's okay, go ahead. I know DRI has created a few additional courses in resiliency. I think, Bonnie, one's called Operational Resiliency, right? There's a DRI course called Operational Resiliency.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have about 5 more minutes. Any other questions or anything I didn't cover that anyone wants to ask Denise?
Just gonna have 80 emails tomorrow.
Well, that's the thing. People could be shy sometimes, and that's why they created that Clubhouse, right? So you don't have to, it's an app where you have the audio podcast style, but there's no visual.
Oh.
So Denise, what's one thing that you would like to see change that has not changed yet within continuity?
I'm trying to figure out how best to phrase this.
It's okay. It's just you and me here.
just us. No, the biggest thing I think that we need to really change is getting the right people in the right positions. So I will tell you that right now the continuity training branch is going through a bit of a refresh on our own. And literally there's only 2 of us in the training branch, myself and my boss. And we have 1 contractor who's been assigned to us to support, Christine. That's it. That's your whole training branch right now for the continuity. We're doing, we just did interviews for some of the jobs last week and the week before. So we're trying to hire in, but with the pandemic, a lot of people just retired and just called it a day. They were like, to nuts with this, I'm out. We had 2 retirements just out of our own branch, and then 1 was a medical concern. So, that was 3 that came out of our branch within the past 6 months. So, while there's some level of, you're upset when people leave, there's also some level of, we can finally put people in those positions that we need, because I'm the only one in that branch who had experience building coursework at above just a government level. And we need to start putting people in positions where not only can they do the coursework for it, but they can do that outreach. And I would really like to find a way to get those people in those positions that are able to do that outreach when it's not requiring a pandemic to make people pay attention. continuity is just not always the sexiest topic to discuss. Leadership doesn't always like to discuss continuity. And then, of course, when a bad thing happens, like a pandemic, everyone wants to talk about continuity. And I want to somehow figure out how to get people in those positions so that once this pandemic does eventually calm down, that we are able to still keep up that passion for continuing to have that outreach. So that's the one thing I don't think that we've many places have looked at in a continuity level is how are we going to maintain this once it's no longer everything we have to talk about.
Yeah, I think you're in a very unique but yet great position in that you have a niche, right, where you could deliver
Right.
free education, and the supply for that, the demand for that is there, right? There are a lot of people who
Right.
either are new into the program or may have been in the program 10, 15 years and go, gee, I feel like I need to, refresh myself a little bit, but yet maybe I don't have maybe I don't have the money for it, or maybe, I could only take so many online courses. There's really very little other places to turn to other than FEMA
Mhm.
for free education. So your branch there, although small, the country, there's a lot of folks in the country and in this field who really look to you and your branch to kind of pump out that information and to show us what's new and how should we change our plans? How should we change our program? So
Right. And that is part of where we're hoping this new training goes. And I will tell you that the way we look at it is we'll teach anybody. We'll teach. I have taught my dog. I will teach anybody. I joke about that, but continuity benefits everybody in the community. Everybody is somehow impacted in a continuity event. And so just those minimal things, that means everyone should be getting this. And so what I really want to get is that outreach out to those people who don't realize they should be getting this, who don't realize that this is something they may not need to take a continuity program manager's course, but at least taking the online training gets the thought process going, because it's going to take all of us for the nation to be resilient, not just most of us, or even some of us. It's going to take everybody. So I really, we are really trying to stress that whole community concept, really trying to stress the change in verbiage from it being just a federal thing to everybody has a play in this. And you're doing things for it every day that you may not even realize that you do for it every day. Just to make sure that we are giving credit where credit is due, and that people understand what else is out there that they can benefit from.
right. And two thoughts I had, and then we'll end. But the first is, I love how you created that town example or that city example. I think a lot of times we talk about continuity as if it's like this some theory, and to actually apply it to a real world example and show how it could work in different segments, right? From activation to implementation, to accountability of staff, to recovery strategies, and to actually see that play in a real world example really puts it to life. So I think that was a great part. And I love the dog, by the way. I lost
This
my
is Hank.
second question.
This is the Hank of Gashank.
Hi, Hank. How are you doing?
If you want to know who the Hank is, this is the Hank. He is a 10-year-old Shih Tzu.
Love him. Beautiful.
So
okay, I have 7:59. Any other questions? Anything I missed from anybody?